everybody! So what you're going to do for this video is you are going to take out your notebook and write down these notes as I go through the video. So I'll tell you when to pause and write down the notes. So right now I want you to pause this video and write down the topic, proportion or not a proportion, the date, and the essential question. How can you identify if an equation, table, or situation is a proportion? Next, I want you to pause the video and draw this in your notebook. So what is a proportion? A proportion is a relationship between two variables. Remember, variables are like your letters, like X and Y. They're called variables because they represent a variety of different numbers. The two variables in a proportion are related by equivalent ratios. So remember, we had two ways of making tables that were proportional before. One way was to use equivalent ratios. So if we multiplied one side of the table by like 2, we have to multiply the other side as well. So 2 times 2 would be 4. 3 times 2 would be 8. Nope. Would be 6. And we could use that the whole time. Maybe this time we multiply by 3. As long as we multiply by the same thing on both sides, we're keeping our ratios equivalent. So this table is proportional because it has equivalent ratios. The other thing we've been doing is figuring out our constant of proportionality. So on the left side, this is proportional, but we've been using equivalent ratios to figure it out. On the right side, we've been finding our constant of proportionality. So what can I multiply times 2 to get 3? I'm going to write it over here. 2 times something equals 3. Well, remember that if 2 times something equals 3, then that something is equal to 3 divided by 2. So in this case, every time we're multiplying by 3 over 2. That is our constant of proportionality. So 4 times 3 over 2. Let's write that over here. Well, I could do 4 over 1. That's 12 divided by 2, which is 6. And if I started with 12, and I multiplied by our constant of proportionality, 12 times 3 is 36. 36 divided by 2 is 18. So both of these tables are proportional, but one we solved using equivalent ratios, the other we solved using the constant of proportionality. So pause the video here and make sure to write this down in your table or in your notebook. Okay. So pause the video again and write down this question. How can I tell if a table is proportional? A table is proportional if you are always multiplying by the same number. Remember, before we mentioned our constant of proportionality, that's constant every time we're multiplying by the same number. So in our table, we need to be multiplying by the same number for it to be proportional. For example, this table is proportional because every time we're multiplying by 3 to get the next number. Whatever we input for x, we're multiplying 3 times x to get our y. 2 times 3 is 6. 5 times 3 is 15. 8 times 3 is 24. This number is constant. We're multiplying by the same number. For something to not be proportional, here, let me use the same numbers. So this table is not proportional. We could do 2 times 4 to get 8, but then we have 5 times 3 to get 15, 8 times 3 to get 24. 4 is not the same as 3 or 3, so this table is not proportional because we're not multiplying by the same number each time. So pause the video and write down those notes. Then I want you to write down these notes. How can I tell if an equation is proportional? So an equation is proportional if you are only multiplying and not adding or subtracting. So only multiplying, not plus or minus. For something to be proportional, you need to be able to write your equation in this form, where you have y on one side, x on the other, and you're multiplying by some constant of proportionality. So some examples, like y equals 2x is proportional because we're multiplying by 2. y equals 2x plus 5 is not proportional, because then we're not just multiplying, we're also adding. Y equals x is also proportional, because it's hard to see, but if there's just an x there, there is like a 1 that we don't always write, but anything times 1 is just the same thing. So y equals x is actually an example of something proportional. But like y equals x minus 2, that's not proportional because then we're subtracting by 2. You might see something like x divided by 4. That might be kind of confusing because it looks like we're not multiplying, but actually we can rewrite this as 1/4 times x, and that is proportional. So as long as you can rewrite it into this form, then it's proportional. But if you can't rewrite it so it's just one thing times x, like y equals 4 divided by x, we can't rewrite that to be something times x. So, or to be y equals something times x. So that would not be proportional. And remember, the number that we multiply here, we have a special name for it called our constant of proportionality. So you can find your constant of proportionality from your equation, but you can also, or from your table, but you could also find it from your equation. So pause the video and write this down. Okay, this is the last piece of notes, so please pause and write this down. This says, how can I tell if a situation is proportional? So a situation is like when we write something in words or we're talking about a story. So you have multiple ways that you could solve this. One thing you could do is write an equation and try to figure it out from the equation, or you can create a table and check the table. We're going to be asking you to do both. For example, Jamie had 5 candies. When she went trick-or-treating, she got 2 candies per house. So what I mean by we're going to ask you to do both is we're going to be giving you a situation next week where you'll have to write an equation, create a table, and decide if it's proportional or not. So let's see. I'm going to make y my total candy. So I know I'm going to have an x in here somewhere. And I'm going to make x the number of houses that Jamie has been to. So right away it says Jamie had 5 candies. So before she even goes to any houses, she starts with 5 candies. So in our equation, whatever our total candy is the candy she's getting from the houses, plus the candy she started with. Okay. How much candy does she get from each house? You can see that she gets 2 candies per house. Per means for each house. It's also kind of like a multiplier word. Every time we go to another house, we get 2 more candies. If we go to 4 houses, 4 times 2 is 8 candies. That's the number that we're multiplying times the number of houses that we go to. So if we go to 1 house, we're going to add 2 more candies to our total to get 7 candies. If we go to 2 houses, we're going to add 2 again to get 9. Right away though, I can see from our equation that this is not proportional because we have this plus 5. I can also see in our table, there's nothing we can multiply by 0 to get 5. So we cannot have a constant of proportionality for this table. So when you get a situation, it's usually best to try writing an equation and then creating a table to tell if it's proportional or not proportional. So this is not proportional. Okay, please pause the video and finish writing these notes down, then go back to the slides. Thanks. Bye.